Smithfield Town Council Work Session, July the 27th, 2026 is 3 o'clock. First of all, has anybody signed up for public comments? We have no one signed up. Does anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll move to item 1 in public safety. Mr. Alonzo.
Yes, sir. Mayor.
Our chief, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good afternoon. You have our monthly activity report. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you all may have concerning that report. If there are no questions, the only thing as far as operational updates that I would like to share is this. Last week we had our second annual youth camp. We had 19 participants. We had 18 participants to graduate. The only question that I have is I don't know who had the most fun, the kids or the officers. But I was able to go, and I saw some kids coming in the mornings with look like sad faces. By that afternoon, they were elated. I mean, the relationship the officers built with the kids is priceless. And we've had more people that want to come on board to participate by way of giving or in some fashion. So I think this was an excellent program, and we've had nothing but positive reviews. And in fact, you could have a personal testimony from someone that shall remain nameless in the audience today, this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. That would be me. My son John went to the police camp last week with one of his buddies, had a great time, enjoyed interacting with the officers, learned a lot, just every day had stories, of different things that they did, different things they learned. So kudos to the department and all the people there that worked hard in the planning, the executing, everything. It was really, really great for the kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yes.
And I would just like to add that it was not just the Smithfield Police Department, but we've had officers from DMV, Isle of Wight Sheriff's Office, Virginia Marine Police, and maybe the state police. So it's a collective effort. So we are building bridges throughout the community. So.
Good job. I really appreciate it.
I know of one officer had a good time on a boat ride. So anyway.
Oh, yes.
Anyone have any questions for the chief?
I do have a question, Mayor Smith. Chief Howell, and I know that you know, I have a special interest in what happens on Wren Road.
Yes, ma'am.
And I saw that there were 3 incidents. I'd like to find out the results of those. Did they lead to arrests?
Which do you, okay.
There's one that says on 611, a dispute, verbal, domestic.
Well, with a verbal domestic, it would be up to the complainant to pursue charges. They may have called the police, but the police would have responded, but just because we responded does not mean that an arrest took place. The complainant would have to go to the magistrate's office for a verbal dispute.
So when we go on a call like that, we basically leave that information with them, or we don't do anything else?
We cannot, for a verbal dispute, we cannot make an arrest because the crime did not occur in the officer's presence. We don't see any signs of any assault or anything of that nature. It's only verbal. It's only a disagreement that 2 people are having, and we may get called. And so several times there's no arrest in situations such as that.
Okay, and the next one says on 612, we were called there for a rape.
In a situation such as that, the officers will respond, take the initial report, and the investigators will follow up with that. If they find probable cause that said crime did occur, then charges would be forthcoming.
Okay, and then there was a case on 624 that says assault simple.
A simple assault, that is, again, it could result in some shoving. It's nothing serious. The complainant would have to speak to a magistrate and pursue charges if he or she wishes to do so.
So in that case, in the verbal case, it was a situation where the plaintiff or the
Complaint.
victim,
Complainant.
or the victim called the police department?
Yes.
Okay, and so we don't track those?
No, because it will be up to them if they want
To follow through.
to follow through by speaking with the magistrate and pursuing the situation through court.
Okay, and we don't follow through with the rape charge, rape
With the rape
arrest?
charge, that is investigated.
Okay, all right.
And it may be something that's still under investigation if no arrest has been made as of yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Yes, please.
Chief Al, thank you for all the work that you do, and I saw and heard a lot about the police department work this week with the children. Well, it looked wonderful. I wanted to ask about, we had the unfortunate incident in the water a few weeks ago on the Pagan, and I wanted to ask if you or anyone else, town manager, could probably chime in, even Public Works, as part of the investigation, or did we learn anything as far as, do we need better safety enhancement in that area? Was there anything that the community could have done to prevent that?
That was a situation where two people were on a vessel fishing. They were tied up to the pier under the bridge. A line got tangled, and the gentleman went to untangle the line. I think it may have been an 18-foot vessel, which was a pontoon boat. The vessel began to move. He lost his balance and went over the short rail. I guess the rail may have been the height of this table, and he went over the side of the rail. He did come up and was attempting to swim, and all of a sudden he went under and did not resurface. In speaking with family, there were the medical issues that were indicated, and so we're not sure if that played a part or not.
Thank you for those details. Yeah, I wasn't sure where the tie-off was at, if it had been on the dock, or if we have adequate life rings out there to be thrown, or what have you. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did he have a life preserver on?
I wouldn't believe that he would have had a life preserver on. Had he had it on, it should have kept him afloat. You're required to have them on the vessel. You're required to have them on when the vessel is in motion, but they were anchored.
Anyone else have any questions for the chief at this time? Hearing none, we'll move to Public Works. Mr. Heine? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
While Mr. Heidi's coming up, this was an item that had come up at a previous meeting and asked us to look into the possibility of using some of our litter control grant funds to potentially put up some litter signage. Mr. Heidi has looked into the cost of those and has some options, but wanted to put it for discussion amongst council when you've heard from him on if you'd like for us to pursue this, where you would like for us to pursue them, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, I looked into litter control signs. In Virginia, littering is a Class 1 misdemeanor. There's the code section, so and it's no littering signs in general. There's some evidence that they work in specific areas. A lot of municipalities and towns have them on the entrance to towns, or they're on roadways or areas that have a lot of litter, and they can make a difference. So here's a couple pictures of ones locally. So there's kind of two types of approved Virginia littering signs. There's one you've probably seen that has a hand throwing trash into a trash can. That's more for, you'd see something downtown or in a walkable area. This is what's generally used on roadways. These are both in Virginia. In some places they just have the sign, and some places they have a reminder of the sign, or the fine value, which is minimum 400, maximum 2,500, and I've seen both of those printed on that small sign underneath. There's the VDOT cut sheet on that sign. there's not a cut sheet for the fine reminder sign. That's kind of just standard sign. And here's a cost breakdown for what it costs to produce and put up that sign.
And as a follow-up, I did touch base with VDOT. If we wanted to place them on a roadway that is theirs, which would be Route 10, South Church Street, Gray Street, we could do so with their approval under our existing land use permit. We would just have to seek their approval for the location and signage. If it was on one of our roads, then we have much more leniency on where we can put them. So just wanted to provide you with the information and see if there's places you would like for them to go and how many you'd like us to pursue.
I would say the sizing of the signs, the spacing, and the method of installing them would still fall under that Virginia MUTCD, how big the signs are and where they go. So there are some, can't just put them everywhere.
Right.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, since I had brought this
Go ahead,
up.
Mr. Cutler.
Thank you, sir, for bringing this information. Just remind, I had seen these signs in Emporia, and I know we have, I think we have one problem area for sure, maybe some others. But I had seen it on the town streets going into Emporia, not on the freeway. And just, it caught my attention because I had never seen such a fine. And it was a good reminder to not throw anything out the window. But so I'm unsure, maybe some of the folks that have lived here longer could elaborate, if we have a problem on some other entries to town. It seems like coming into town from Ben's Church, a little problem there at times, but maybe somebody with longer history would have more input.
This is just the cost of the signs. The installation is on us, correct?
Yes, sir. Right, if we paid a contractor to install it, it'd be more, but if we're talking about a couple of signs, it's something we can self-perform.
Do you have any idea where we have probably a worse problem somewhere than we do others? I know that coming into the plant from the bypass has always been littered with trash.
Right. Yeah, I would say some of the higher speed roads coming into town, you're gonna get more of this. We pick up trash, Ben's Church Boulevard, there between high school and the Tractor Supply, that's probably the worst spot. But all of the main entry points to town, even, especially places where you don't have residences or businesses in front of them, say they're a farm field or a just open parcel, that's generally where you find this. People are less worried about throwing trash in what they think is, just an occupied area. So we have a couple of those in town where these could be installed.
Does anyone else have any questions for Ed at this time?
I have, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, $300 is nothing to sneeze at. However, for $1,200 or $1,500, we get 4 or 5 signs on, 4 corners around town or something like that, major roads. I think that's enough to kind of get people's attention and at least say that, hey, we're paying attention to this. I think it sounds like a good idea.
All right, we can look at identifying spots on the main entryways.
Well, Mr. Mayor, question, those entryways are state highways, correct?
Yes.
Well, they put up bird sanctuary signs without a whole lot of problem. Not that I love birds, I really do. But if they can put bird sanctuary signs up coming into town, in the middle of town, I don't know why they can't foot the bill for those signs that's coming into the entrance of town. That, to me, that's their job.
We can ask.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This grant that you speak of, is this something that's already been awarded, or is this something
Yes,
has
sir.
to be applied for?
We
or-
get that grant every year.
Okay.
Historically, we've used it to offset the cost of our special spring and fall cleanups that we do. That also goes to help buy like the little trash grabbers and vests for when we do cleanup days. So that's typically what that money gets spent on. but this is an eligible expense under that grant.
How
The
mu-
dollar amount for that is?
$5,000
Yeah.
$5,000
every
a
year.
year.
Okay.
Well, we can look at spots on the 4 entryways, and we'll try VDOT first, and if for some reason
Yeah.
they're unwilling to do it, we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Ed? Hearing none, we'll move to item 3, and Ms. Laura Ross, the treasurer, has got a full plate here in front of her. Laura?
I'd like to step outside and get your snacks right now.
You did say snack and not dinner, correct? Thank you very much.
I can order pizza. Need. He's loading it up for me. I want to introduce Mr. Robert Lauterberg. He's with Virginia Investment Pool, VML, and we'll talk about that first, before we get started. I need that. Oh, no, I need that. Yeah. So, what I want to talk about is, Mr. Cutler says, and I'm going to quote you, Mr. Cutler, will you or they be tying our investments and translate the facts presented to the examples of how we use those investment tools? There's no Smithfield specific numbers. So I thought I would take this time to explain what we invest in. Sorry, I always do that. You want me to repeat all that? I can repeat all that. Okay,
No, we're
okay,
good.
okay. So, I don't mind. Anyway, so I want to explain what we invest in. It's called an investment pool because they don't invest individual things for us. Like they won't go and invest in some bonds. It is a pooled fund. So they can't really tie out our individual. Now they do this a statement, which is included in your packet each month, that shows what we're invested in. That's what he's going to talk about, how the overall portfolios are doing and some of the new things that they have, which we've taken advantage of. Each month, I provide what's called the benchmark report in your package. And it will show where we are and what we've earned for the prior month. So where do I come up with those numbers to invest in? I do what's called a cash forecast, which I started doing when I came here. I look back at what we've spent, our revenue to expenditures, and I use our budget to go through it. And I look to see how much money we need or don't need. With the money we don't need, we can potentially invest. You could do it fund by fund, like I could say $500,000 is really good, but I don't want to catch a short. I don't want to invest and then have to pull it back because that does cost everybody to do that. So that's where I come up with the numbers. If anybody wants to come over and do a cash forecasting example in my office, I'll be happy to show you. Make sure you have coffee before you come. And this cash forecast that I've been doing, I've been using for probably 25 years. I've used it in every country that I've been an advisor for, and it's a standard across every footprint. Yes, it is in Excel, but it is something that everybody uses. The same thing. It can get granular or not get granular. You don't put a lot of things in there. Like you don't put, we wrote 15 checks. You put in how many checks are coming out and an estimate of that. So there you go. Right now we have $24 million invested. Not all is with Virginia Investment Pool, but he has a time stop because he has another locality to go visit. Okay. So I'm going to let you hear from.
Okay. Should I flip this page with this thing? Just point it where it's on. Okay, thank you for having me here today. I'm Bob Lauterberg. I'm Managing Director with VML VACO Finance. It's always a pleasure to be in Smithfield. It's such a charming town. I really enjoy whenever I have an opportunity to come here. Also, Smithfield has been one of our early pioneers in this program, the Virginia Investment Pool. I think your account number is number 9, and we're about to sign our 200th participant in Virginia Investment Pool. So you all were at the leading edge of that. We also just started fixed-term portfolios, and you were, again, one of the first participants in that program as well. Our investment program has really grown since you first joined it because it's a really good value for local governments. The opportunity to earn a decent return on your cash balances is probably better in the Virginia investment pool than any other investment you'll find that local governments can participate in. State code prescribes what investments a local government can select from, and it's a very conservative state code.
In your package that I give to you, it has a list of how we've done relative to all of our investments, and that does our investment policy is following the Code of Virginia, and that's on page 18.
Okay.
Sorry.
So if you look at those code provisions, and it's several, the code itself is several pages in the state code. It's a conservative investment policy. Essentially, a local government can invest in fixed income securities that mature in no longer than 5 years. And the securities you're allowed to invest in are either U.S. government, federal government agencies, or it can be private issuers, but they have to be especially high credit quality. So the code is very limiting in that. There are different types of securities that a local government can invest in, and some of these are things that are difficult for local governments to do on their own, to invest in repurchase agreements or commercial paper or things of this nature may be difficult for a town to do those things. Even the bonds, the publicly traded bonds, present a challenge because if you're investing government money into bonds, you really want to monitor the issuers of those bonds and make sure that they are healthy and that those bond ratings that they receive are maintained. So this program is all about making that easy for local governments to do through an investment pool that is owned by local governments. That's kind of a little bit of a background on it, and I'll take you through this presentation and give you a little more detail. So first about us, VML Vaco Finance is a nonprofit corporation. We were established in 2003 by VML and also Vaco. We're governed by a board of directors that's comprised of local officials. They are appointed by VML and Vaco as well. We are a registered municipal advisor. We're registered with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board and the SEC so that we can advise local governments on financing as well. Our services include financing and municipal advisory, and we've done $1.2 billion in projects. We've advised on that amount of projects to date. Our investment programs include the Virginia Investment Pool, also the pooled OPEB trust fund. These combined have $6.7 billion in assets, and then we do accounting services as well. Essentially what that is filling in if you have a vacancy on your staff or if you need help preparing for an audit or you have a special project. We identify trained local government accountants so we can place them in positions like that, temporary positions to assist local governments. So we do basically everything financial. And because we have a broad range of services, VML Vaco Finance is considered the most widely used financial services program for local governments in Virginia. And we've assisted local governments totaling over 350 in Virginia. Now, the Virginia Investment Pool is what I'll focus on this afternoon. This was created in 2013 by local treasurers and investment officers to provide a professionally managed investment program for local governments and political subdivisions. We got the program started. It was created using the joint exercise of powers. Once we had the program started, we went to the General Assembly and sought specific approval for a jointly administered pools. And this one was unanimously approved by the General Assembly in 2017. This program is organized as a governmental trust under Internal Revenue Code, Section 115. What that means is this isn't a product. I'm not a banker with a product here to sell. VIP is an investment program that's owned and controlled by local governments and authorities. As of the end of this past fiscal year, which was, about 3 weeks ago, we had a combined $4.3 billion in assets in Virginia Investment Pool and 199 participating political subdivisions. So we're waiting to see who the 200th will be. We'll probably try to do a splash that we've done that. So what VIP is really local governments investing jointly. And there's a number of benefits of this approach. One is that we're accountable to treasurers and investment officers because local governments are the owners of this program. We have a consistent record of competitive returns. Our portfolios are highly rated and they get a lot of oversight. And this is usually the number one concern of local governments. Will our funds be safe if we put it into this program? Well, this program probably gets as much or more oversight than anything a local government can do. Our own staff, we have a director of investments who's a CFA charter holder. That's the highest designation you can get as an investment manager. So he's reviewing the investments. The fund manager is reviewing and monitoring the investments on a daily basis. Because we're a pool, all the participants, to some extent, are also looking at those investments and asking questions when appropriate. So there are a lot of eyes on this program, and it gives everyone a lot of comfort. Of course, our Board of Trustees is specifically charged with a fiduciary duty to monitor the investment. So there's about 4 levels of oversight. Our program, we think, is customer-focused and user-friendly. One of the ways we do that is we have an online investment platform so that it's easy to invest in VIP and also to access your funds when you need them. We do that by tying our investment platform to your own bank account, your checking account, so that you can transfer funds from your VIP account to your town bank account and back. It's like a closed system where the funds can't leave that. You can't move money from VIP to somebody's personal account. You can't move it offshore. It can only go to the town of Smithfield's account. And we verify all those accounts before we set you up. So you have the convenience, but also the security of that approach. The funds are managed by PTMA Financial Solutions. Our board selected through an RFP process an investment manager for the funds. This is a firm that focuses on short-term fixed income investments, specifically for state and local governments. They're considered a best-in-class manager. They have $158 billion in assets under management in something like 30 states around the country. One of the most well-regarded of the investment managers. This is our Board of Trustees. They are all elected at an annual meeting, and we invite all the participants and VIP to attend an annual meeting once a year. That meeting's coming up this year on September 18th, and I hope that you all will be represented at that meeting. At the meeting, we elect representatives to the Board of Trustees, and we also hear reports from the fund manager. We'll bring in outside speakers to talk about investment topics as well. So this is our board. It's a very strong board, in my opinion. In this part of the state, you have Jay Burness. He's the general manager for Hampton Roads Sanitation District. Bonnie Dixon, a treasurer from Lancaster County. Lee Henderson, a treasurer from Virginia Beach. And Dinah Babb, treasurer for City of Franklin. Now, VIP isn't just one investment, it's actually 3 different investment options. And these 3 different options are intended to match your investment time horizon, or how long you intend to invest, those particular funds. So we have the stable net asset value liquidity pool for overnight funds. We have fixed term portfolios. That's our newest program for funds you can invest for up to a year. And then the 1 to 3 year high quality bond fund, that's intended for funds that you can invest for over 1 year. And I'll explain a little bit why that is and how these portfolios are different. Start with the stable liquidity pool. So the key feature of this is that this is a pool that pays very competitive overnight investment rates. So this isn't considered a long-term investment. This could be funds you put in on Monday and you take out on Tuesday. It's however you want to use it. It can be used that way because it has a stable net asset value. It doesn't fluctuate in value. You don't have to worry if you're using these funds to make payroll. You don't have to worry that the market's going to decline between now and the time you take your funds out. It's like a money market fund in that sense. This says the current yield was 377. Actually, on Friday, that rate went up slightly to 380. So competitive rates, same day liquidity, no volatility. This is a fund you would use for your daily operating funds, tie it to the checking account, move funds in and out as frequently as you're comfortable doing that. It's also good for reserve funds that you may need to access on short notice. So maybe you have an emergency reserve and you want to be able to access that quickly. Well, with this, if you use this as the vehicle, you can access it the same day if you need to. It's good for bond and loan proceeds. Under IRS rules, if you issue tax-exempt debt, either bonds or you enter into a tax-exempt loan, you're required by the IRS to track any earnings on those bond proceeds until they get spent. Or if you put them in a reserve fund, you have to track those earnings. That can be a little bit of a burden to local governments because you have to pay somebody typically to monitor any arbitrage earnings and then to prepare a report to submit to the IRS at the end of 5 years. So we do all of that as part of this program for no cost. So it's a great vehicle for loan proceeds. This is the rate in the stable liquidity fund. I told you it was about 380 today. This gives you a little bit of history starting in January of 2022. So, we're going back a little over 4 years. So if you remember back in 2022, we were coming out of COVID. Interest rates were literally zero, and it was very hard to earn anything. Well, at that time, this fund was tracking the Fed funds rate. It basically, it's a market-determined interest rate, but it basically follows very closely with the Federal Reserve's short-term rate. So this fund was also at about 2%. As the Fed started raising rates, and that's what those stair steps are, when the Fed started raising rates so rapidly, we hadn't seen that kind of rapid increase in short-term interest rates in decades. And so that was kind of unprecedented. But if you notice, the liquidity pool just followed right along with that. And so whenever you heard the Federal Reserve was raising interest rates, that was being reflected almost at the same time with the liquidity pool. So that's a good illustration where rates are going up. Since then, the Fed has more gradually lowered rates a bit. And so the liquidity pool return is coming down a bit. That's why we have two other portfolios. So we have two other options. This one's going to follow the Federal Reserve. That's what this one is going to do. So we also have BIP fixed term portfolios. This is a newer program that we just kicked off this year. And with this program, you can lock in your interest rate. So especially if you think interest rates could be going down, this would be a good way to lock in those interest rates. Or if you're not sure what interest rates are going to do, but you kind of like the idea of getting 4% on a 1-year investment, you can lock that in today, take all the guesswork out of it. So it operates similar to a CD. It's not the same as a CD, though. These are actual portfolios that the investment manager is buying securities to put into these portfolios when he receives orders from us. So, in other words, these are market-determined interest rates. That's much different than with a bank CD. With a bank CD, there's a banker behind that who's setting the interest rate for that CD, and it'll be determined on how how urgently the bank wants to bring in deposits into the bank for reporting purposes or for lending opportunities. And sometimes they have a good appetite for that, and sometimes they don't. It's kind of hard to predict. With this program, the market is setting the interest rate on these fixed term portfolios. So you're assured of getting the best interest rate that's being offered in the market the day that this closes. And we do this twice a month. So with this, you can lock in your interest rates 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. Longer term rates, multi-month rates, generally are higher than overnight rates because it's kind of a rule of investing. Not always true, but in the vast majority of times, if you invest longer term, you can expect a little higher rate of return for that. There's no volatility for this as long as you keep your funds invested. And this one is one where you really don't want to try to guess this. You want to have pretty high assurance that you can invest for 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. What some people do, and you'll see retirees do this as well with bonds or with CDs, they'll set up a ladder. So you could invest some in 3, some in 6, 9, and 12. So you always have access to your funds every quarter, some access to it. And if you don't really need the funds, you can reinvest them for another year and keep the ladder going. But this one is definitely intended to be held until that maturity. Given all that, this is best for reserve fund balances. It's good for putting money aside for future projects. Maybe you have a major project and you're going to set aside funds each year for that, or for scheduled capital asset replacement. Maybe you're going to be replacing some water lines and you have a 5-year capital plan. You know what's coming up and you want to set funds aside and you have some control over the timing. You could go ahead and put them into fixed-term portfolios. This is where those rates rates are. So the 3-month rate, 352, the 12-month rate, this is what we advertised on July 20th, which was last week, I believe. So what we do is we put together a rate sheet like this, and we send it out to all localities, and we tell them, these will be the rates for this week when we close on Thursday or Friday. And then the local government can decide if they want to invest in one or more of these maturities. So we advertise that on Monday of that week, the week of July 20th. Strange thing happened though, interest rates actually went up a bit during the week. So on Friday, we were able to close at 4.36, so about a quarter of a percentage point higher than what we were advertising. And that's something that we would generally do if interest rates end up going higher on the day of closing. If interest rates went down, frankly, our program would, to the extent that it's possible, we would eat that and try to honor the rate that we put out there. So, pretty nice deal for local governments. The third portfolio is the 1 to 3 year high quality bond fund. This is one that historically has offered the most attractive rates for local governments. And that's because this is invested for the longest term that you're allowed to under state code. Generally, the duration is 1 to 3 years, and there'll be some fixed income that mature even after 3 years within the portfolio. So you can get access to these longer term rates, but you can still access your own funds in an emergency twice a month, on the 1st of the month or the 16th of the month. So it's not like you're committing the funds and you can't get it for years. No, you can actually access your funds here. So that's a reason to consider this as a potential investment. Now this one is subject to market fluctuation. Because it's a longer term investment, the value of this investment can rise and fall a bit, say from month to month. So that's why we recommend that you use this for a longer term investment over 1 year, because over those longer periods, that rise and fall will tend to cancel itself out historically over a market cycle. This is best for fund balances. Most every local government maintains fund balances that it carries over from year to year. You don't want to be living down to the wire in case there are emergencies or opportunities that come up. So that fund balance that you intend to carry over year to year, that's a good source of funds for something like this. It's also good for long-term reserve funds. One example is a cemetery fund. Some towns have that. I don't know if you all have that or not. But some towns do, and that's kind of by definition a long-term reserve fund. So this could be a good vehicle for that. Good for long-term capital asset replacement, maybe that 5-year capital replacement plan, and you want to start preparing for something that's 5 years out. This would be good as well. Now, just to illustrate, this is the difference between the liquidity pool strategy, which is a great rate. Everyone would agree, 380 for a fully liquid investment. That's a great rate. And it's been a really strong rate over the last few years as interest rates were increasing so fast. But even with that, the 1 to 3 year strategy, looking at this period of time, we're going back 20 years. The 1 to 3 year strategy over longer periods tends to outperform a short-term strategy, and that's the opportunity for using the 1 to 3 year fund. This is a $5 million investment that at the end of 20 years had grown in the liquidity pool to $7 million and $7,750,000 in the 1 to 3 year strategy. So it's a meaningful difference. This kind of summarizes those three different portfolios. I've gone over the top three lines. The fourth one's showing what are these invested in. And you'll see it's U.S. government securities, high-quality corporate bonds. There's negotiable CDs that are sold in the market, commercial paper, and so forth. The investments are all very similar. The maturities, though, are different. The liquidity pool is rated AAA by S&P. Fixed-term portfolios also AAA. You get a rating there from Fitch. And the 1 to 3 year fund is rated AA+. People ask, why is that? It's because this holds a lot of U.S. government securities, and Standard & Poor's rates the U.S. government AA+. So all very strong investments. So one question people ask a lot is, what direction are interest rates headed? That's sometimes easier to speculate on than other times. Like right now, it's very difficult to predict where rates are going. And if you look back over the last, I don't know, 9 or 12 months, you would see the conventional wisdom and the markets have gone from we're going to get an interest rate hike to we're going to get an interest rate reduction. Now it's kind of going back in the increased direction. The reason it's hard to estimate, if you look at these key drivers of interest rates, short-term rates are, as I showed you with the liquidity pool, the short-term rates are pretty much following what the Federal Reserve's policy is. And the Federal Reserve is looking at inflation in the economy. They have a target rate of inflation. If inflation's going higher than that, then they're going to raise interest rates to try to rein that in a little bit, and vice versa. So right now we have a conflict in Iran. Nobody knows how that's going to eventually work out. If it's a prolonged conflict, then oil prices, they went pretty high, came back a little bit. They could go back up. That's going to fuel inflation, and then you could expect interest rates are going to remain high. If we got a swift resolution, maybe the opposite happens, and then those lower oil prices would lower inflation, lower interest rates. Tariffs. Tariffs in the short run tend to cause inflation. It's adding to the prices that people are paying, but it's a one-time hit. Once a tariff is in place, that's there for one time. I don't know that we've seen the last of changes in tariff policy, but those tariffs are likely to have more of a short-term impact in terms of increasing prices and causing rates to remain higher. Over the long run, what the government is hoping is that a lot of American businesses will reshore their plants back to this country, and if that occurs, then that'll create real economic growth, more saving, more investment. The tariff revenues will reduce the need for the federal government to borrow as much. Those things would tend to lower interest rates. Artificial intelligence. There's a lot of capital spending that'll be required with artificial intelligence on data centers, memory chips, all of that. And that kind of increased activity, that could cause more inflation and lead to higher rates. Over the long run, though, could really improve productivity and help drive costs lower. So long run could be deflationary. So the Federal Reserve really comes down on the short-term side. This comes down to them, and they have to weigh these different arguments. They're also looking at the long run and factoring that into their interest rate policy. Just had a change in Federal Reserve board chairman, and initially people thought, well, he'll come in and want to lower rates. That's probably the mandate he was given when he was appointed. But what he said recently is kind of the flip side of that. So here's the empirical information that we have. One good source for estimating where interest rates will go is to look at the interest rate futures market. And this is where people are actually, purchasing futures contracts, and it's telling you what investors think interest rates will do in the future. And that's currently, Federal Reserve Board is supposed to meet this week. They could conceivably raise or lower interest rates. Well, the interest rates futures market is predicting about a 2/3 chance that rates will remain unchanged this week. That's in the 3.5 to 375 range. Looking further out, longer term, these markets are saying that there's about a 90% chance that rates will be somewhat higher by 1/4 of a percentage point. So that's as good as any prognostication you can get is what the market's saying. So probably the market's saying there may be a slow increase in rates. The new Fed chairman, he's emphasized that reducing inflation is a top priority. His statements have said prices are too high. The Fed will be unambiguous and unanimous in bringing inflation back down to the 2% goal. So that kind of supports the guess that rates may remain where they are or go a bit higher. So it's for an investor. This is a good time to be invested, and the key is really matching your investment to the right time horizon for your investment. So thank you for having me here, and I'm happy if there are any questions.
Anyone have any questions? That was a nice presentation. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Very informative, very professional.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, Mr. Lauterberg talked a lot about people that were on the boards and this, that, and the other. He didn't talk very much about himself and what his experience level. 2 minutes or less, tell us what you used to do in your former life and who you work for.
Okay. Well, I was state budget director back under Governor Allen years ago, and that sort of led to becoming executive director of Virginia Resources Authority. And you all have probably used VRA. And when I was there, we started the pooled bond program that I think has been like kind of a mainstay for VRA. And we send a lot of localities to that program to take advantage of it. I was one of the founders of this program, VML VACO Finance, in 2003. So we have a long history. I've been here from the beginning. My colleague, also managing director Steve Mulroy, has been around about the same amount of time. So we've had very good stability in our organization. That's helped us to explore new opportunities like these investment programs.
I think our money's in good hands.
It's done really well over the years. I'm glad we were number 9.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all. Okay. At the end.
I won't forget my microphone. That's bad. I want to start with these slides right here. The one that has the graphics on it. There you go, right there. Okay. I always forget. See that right there? That talks about our general fund revenues. That would go forward. Okay. General fund revenues. If you refer back to page 3, we'll talk about what our overall revenue was. I took out the number on there that says, look at page, okay, page 2 of your financial statements. You see that line down there, and I think there has been some concern about reserves, or so I took that number out. And if I take that number out, we are at 90.31% of our overall revenue. That number right there, appropriation for revenues, which I have a presentation on that in just a minute, it just softens the blow that occurs to us. And again, you're looking confused, Mr. Cutler, it's on page 2. And so you'll see where that number is. I want to talk a little bit about the money that we have collected so far. As you're aware of, our real estate taxes were due on June the 5th. And of that, we are pretty close to what we billed. We do still have some residual amount. I'll be focusing on that going forward, but we do have about $300,000 of uncollected revenue on that. Personal property, as you know, we're getting ready to send out notices on that. And I don't know what that number is right now, but we're looking at that. If we take a look at what our overall expenses were for the for the year to date, let me explain a little bit about why we're not looking at budget to actual for this. We don't have final numbers yet. Our final numbers will come in after the auditors make their adjustments. They go through and they send us about 2 or 3 pages of adjustments in journal entries that we need to make. Depreciation, we don't know what that number's going to be. Different rules apply to different things. They look at that. They make adjustments to the timing of when things occur. As an example, payroll. Some of the payroll dates would have occurred in last year, some in this year. They make adjustments. They make adjustments for all of those things that we cannot anticipate. We've already gotten information regarding what they need. We've provided about 2 or 3 pages of data. They will come back in August and ask for more information regarding that. I can have them come in and do a presentation on what they look at if you would like to do that. But they've started their process already, and they are a thorn in my side when they start coming in and ask us questions, because it is constant. They go over the same type of thing every year, but they add in extra things that we never thought about. So it does get pretty exciting. I think I can do this. Hold on. There we go. We've already talked about expenses. Take a look at this slide right here. If you look on that very bottom line under designated funds, designated funds as at the end of June. The Virginia Investment Pool Utilities Funds, it says 3.9%. We did take $1 million and put it in that new fund that they have. During this month, I've taken another $1 million and put it to the fund. It's at 3.9% as well. It matures in 9 months. I'm taking a look at that overall portfolio, and we can put more money into that. As Mr. Robert mentioned, there is that 1 to 3 year. I've invested in that before. When I was here, I didn't like the return. It was not a good rate environment. We earned less than what we earned in the stable NAV fund, so I thought it prudent to leave it in there. Any questions on this? We have right now about $20 million with VIP. I had looked at a couple other things, and I've mentioned this to you all before. When I was at Arlington, we had a large portfolio. We were able to do some bond investing. The only downside to doing bond investing is you have to have a broker that does that. They take away part of your return. We would have to send a broker out to bid to do that, and that's a whole other process that you have to go through with that. So when we get a little bit more money, maybe we'll do it, but I'm not seeing that it's prudent for us right now. Love to see it. That's a little bit about our balances, and we have lots to talk about, so I'm going to flip through this really quick. That's our debt right now, if you'll notice on our debt schedule. We did, that does include our new debt that we have, and that right now is at the last line of that. It says GO bond. We don't owe anything into that. That's strictly interest that we have coming due, and that's in February of next year. I'm using those bond proceeds, the one I did the longer term, to hold on to that money so we have that. We don't have to take it away from anything that we actually earn. The revenue that we get from that will pay for that interest when due. February 1st. Any questions? No? Okay. I use the prime rate to kind of look at seeing what we're doing, and it has not changed since December. The prime and the Fed aren't that far off. I do anticipate that will change. This just gives you an idea of how we are doing overall with our investments, and you've seen this every month. I show you guys this. It shows every individual investment that we have, what we have earned at this, the balance in each one of the funds, and what we've earned year to date. And year to date earnings on all of our investments is on page, keep going, should be page 11, and as of the end of June, our overall investment earnings are $896,025.93. So there you go. Not as good as the year before when we had that extra money, but you know, what can we do with that? So, all righty. That is making sure that we are in compliance with not only our investment policy, but with the Code of Virginia. When I built this, I put the Code in Virginia to reference, and the code references are in there. They're on the right column. It's very tiny. Sorry about that. And that is our overall rate. Every month I put in there, and it's at the very back package that I give out. It shows where we are, what our earnings were for the month. And if you ever want to go back and look at historical ones, I put that on the website too, out the Treasurer's website. And it shows what we've gotten month to month and year to year. And that's the one we're done that, our general, liquid general, and it goes into a lot of data on what our rate was day to day. And they blend that rate towards the end of the month. I don't think it's going anywhere. Did I do something wrong?
That's the last page.
That's the last one. Okay, yeah. All right, let's go to, you have the financial statements. They are typically what they usually are. And again, as I mentioned, those will be updated once our audit's done. I will provide that to you, and we get a little bit final numbers because the January is not the beginning of the year. July is the beginning of the year. The July statements are not very exciting at all. So I'm just going to skip through there. I think we wanted to talk about the bills that are over, invoices over over $20,000. Do we want to go into that right now? We can. So, we have 4 invoices. you go. Okay, so we have 4 invoices, and they are over $20,000 that require council authorization, and we're going to go through those. The first one is for the Peterbilt store. It says PW, Public Works dump truck with plow. Do we want to talk about this? I think there might be some questions about
Just for
this.
clarification, that is the final invoice on that vehicle. We had paid previously for the vehicle itself, and this is for the dump body and snow plow that go in it. So that completes that purchase.
Have we taken delivery?
We have.
Any questions on that? Peterbilt? The next one is Virginia Retirement System LODA. It's for $30,470.
LODA is the Line of Duty Act. It's extra insurance that's on our law enforcement officers, and we pay that once a year.
What does that cover?
They get an additional rate on their multiplier for their retirement because they're in hazardous duty law enforcement service.
Go to the next.
So we're paying it for 22, that's the individuals, that's what that is? Okay, thank you.
So the next one is for, it says Cole Concepts, Windsor Castle. Their porch needed renovation for $25,000.
Correct. That's the beginning of the porch renovations on the side of the manor house.
And then the last one is for flock safety. That is the platform that,
All right, it's our annual contract for flock for the cameras. We pay annually for each one.
$33,000.
Right.
Okay.
Michael,
Yes,
are these based on, these expenses coming based on this budget, or are they coming out last year's budget?
Those will be for last year's budget. They all have invoice dates of the previous, well, all right, so the Cole Concepts, that should be this fiscal year. It's got a
Okay.
July date on it, the same with the VRS. The dump truck body, okay, it's coming out of last year's. The flock is gonna be, again, it's got a 6/12 invoice date on it, so that should be last year.
Last year's, okay.
And that's typical of this time of year. If we have money that should have been apportioned back to last year, we will code it. We have actually until the middle of August before we can do that, before we have to stop doing things like that. That's why June is in flux.
I have a question about the flock cameras. It feels like Netflix. Is this a subscription that we have to pay for perpetually now? There's no other way to reduce this cost. It's $33,000 a year annually to get license plate readers?
It's $3,000 per camera, so every time we add one, we're gonna be paying more. So if we add 2 more next year, it'll go up 6,000, but it's 3,000 every year per camera.
And I think this is a 2-year contract, that we're just paying 1 year right now.
Correct.
But so we'll pay $33,000 annually.
Yes.
And, I mean, could we quantify or something that we return from this?
It has
I under-
solved, and they can talk to it more, but it has solved several cases that we would not have solved if it weren't for these cameras.
So several, is that 7 or is that
It's
70?
solved the homicide, and, one homicide is worth every penny of that. But, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to go further.
The use of flock cameras has been an invaluable tool. It has helped us solve several major cases here in town. It has really benefited the use of the flock camera in us solving crimes.
And, yeah, and to add, if I could to that, Chief, flock has such a network now. It's not, to really conceive or really to examine it as a standalone, what are we getting for that, when there are such a network of flock cameras around, where you may have a vehicle that's involved in a homicide in Petersburg that comes through here. Do we quantify that as solving a homicide here in Smithfield, or it does then point to a crime that occurred somewhere else, and vice versa. It works that way because we had last pursuit that came out of Petersburg, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Came all the way out of Petersburg down and they tracked it all the way down here to just outside of the town limits. Was it abduction, carjacking?
I think it was, may have been a carjacking.
So, yeah, knowing what I know about them, I think that when we're looking at what the bang for the buck is, for lack of a better way of putting it, the fact that we're part of a network and people are paying collectively into it to make the Commonwealth safer is really an important part.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about alternatives. How often that you use it? I mean, is this a monopolistic situation where it's the only thing? You know, is this going to be a rising cost, or is something going to replace it? And then I understand the impact on big cases, but there's also impact on privacy for our citizens as well. I know it's fairly controversial as far as that's concerned. So we're tracking all of our civilians' cars at the same time we're tracking the 1% of criminals' cars. What protects the public? What protects the public from misuse of that system? I know there's been several reports of police officers misusing the system for personal uses and stalking people and things like that. So what types of things do we have in place to protect the public from that?
There are audits in place that the police departments have to do every quarter to ensure that the system is being properly used. And if anyone misuses it, it not only has an impact for the officer, but it also has an impact for the agency. So we realize the importance, and we ensure that our officers are using it in the fashion that they are supposed to be.
Is it a limited access program, or is it department-wide?
It's only sworn officers have access to the flock cameras, and we encourage our officers to use it.
So again, and just back to kind of my original question, just the Netflix aspect of this, is there a diminishing return at some point where we stop paying for this, or is there other localities have enough of them that we don't need them anymore? It just seems like maybe we could, is there no permanent purchase option? It's only a subscription thing forever. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Back to me. Okay. We have audit services engagement letter for Robinson Farmer Cox and Associates. So about that, every year we get this letter that they agree to the scope of what they're going to be doing. And that is what this letter is. And it's pretty much every year is the same thing. Again, I will have the auditors come and talk about what they actually cover during the process, and it changes every year. They want to see how many roads we have, which they ask that question, what's our inventory of roads? We do have an inventory of roads, and I'll ask Ed for that any moment now. So that's what that is. Any questions on this?
Is this audit any different or identical than the past audits?
Again, it changes every year.
But the scope of services is the same.
Yep.
So I guess my question then is well, two questions. Have we ever had any findings from this audit?
No.
And we would be, I prefer if we don't have any findings.
We prefer that too.
There are some localities that have had findings.
We
You can probably
do
Google
bid it
that.
out every 3 to 5 years, and so we have changed firms from time to time. But no, we've never had any negative findings from our financial audit.
Yep, and the audit is not, all of you have seen what happens when you work for a private enterprise. And they come in and they do revenue collection, as an example. They'll go out and talk to several of your vendors. They don't do that for governments, because who would they talk to? And the same thing with invoices. They don't track that invoice back to the original request for payment. They make sure that we do our financial statements correctly. And that's the most important part of what we do. Yep. So there's that. All right. My next thing I want to talk about are budget line items. So, do you have that big? It looks like, nope. I know. There we go. Okay, so, is everybody ready? I want to talk about what we do when we pay bills in the treasurer's office. See these right here? I'm going to hand out one to each person, and I'm going to need those back, okay? So what happens? The invoices come in. Accounts payable person goes through it and makes sure that it's appropriate. She codes it, and then she sends it, puts it in those cute little folders, and they go to the department heads. And once they go to the department heads make sure that that is indeed a good purchase, a valid purchase. Goes through every single line on there. I know I do through the green one's mine. So anybody that has the green one, I go through that completely to make sure it's correct. After that happens, it goes to me. All those folders come back to me because my main concern is that we have enough money to pay those bills. And if it's over $20,000, you all would have heard about it because it has to come to you first before we pay it. So that's that. Once we do that, I look at the line item that it is, make sure it's coded properly because sometimes department heads might have questions about where they want it charged to, and I'll talk to them about that. Once they do that, I put my little check mark on it, I sign mine, and then it goes to Michael, who has one more look through everything that's in every single folder. Sometimes those folders are huge. We only pay bills maybe twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month, just depending on what goes on. And if you want to bring me one invoice and want that paid next week, it's probably not going to happen because we make sure that we do it in a nice, smooth fashion and we have sufficient money. If there are larger invoices that come through, occasionally there are, we have payroll that comes every 2 weeks, I have to make sure we have sufficient funds in the bank because I'm going to try to put as much as I can in the investments. So that's how that works. So let's talk about one thing called budget overages. That's a difficult word to say. There are 17 pages of that. I'm not going to go through every single page, but I want to talk about them so you can see what they are. What I did was I looked at our financial statements. And if we want to talk, we'll start on page 1. It says page 110 of 191. Okay. I took every single invoice that we were over in every single line item. I took our financial statement, saw every line that was over, and pulled that out. So let's talk about town council first. Legal fees were 265% above what was budgeted. And again, these numbers are against budget. So that's what that, and the majority of those came from Sands Anderson at $129,000. Okay. We do have some professional services that you see the second line goes down there as well. I'm not going to go over each single one, but you can definitely take a look. And if anybody wants to see the said invoices that are associated with these, we have them in our DocStar system. You can take a look at them. And I do it department by department. And these departments are in bolded, and they follow the financial statement. Town council, then we'll go down to the town manager, me, who has the biggest overage, but that's to be expected. I warned everybody about that earlier. Because of our financial systems, which we're going to get rid of some of that. Page 4, and it also says page 113. That shows where our financial system is costing, and we have paid, and some of you heard me complain about this before, we're still paying for Munis. I'm keeping a tally so that we can hopefully talk to our attorneys about talking to them, about perhaps getting more money back from them. Munis is a system that we tried to implement that they had, they still do, I guess, at Isle of Wight. Never worked, but they charge a bundling fee. You have to pay for everything up front, and we're still paying, even though we only use it as a holding place right now. But we're going to try to get some of that back. We're implementing RDA. Right now we're using 3 financial systems. It's why it takes so long to put these financial statements together. You have to roll up the month, you have to do your bank recs, then you have to get everything from every single system. The one that takes the longest is VAI Bright, which is our revenue system. The whole machination with that. But one day, we're going to start in January, we're going to hope that everything is going to be on the same system. But, you know, we really do. We want to turn off all the other ones and use one system to produce these financial reports. Right now, it's weekends that my staff is working to get these things done. So, going forward, if you all want me to provide this much detail to you at meetings, I sure can. But it's a lot. But we try to keep within budget, and these are, again, only the items that are over budget. All departments other than mine are at budget or below budget. So and that's again on your financial statements. If you look at page 1, the one that shows revenue to expenditures, that's where that is. Any questions? Okay. Now, we are going to talk about budget reserves. Okay. There has been some discussion or some concern about budget reserves. I want to really talk about what they are. Can you go to our website? The Treasurer's Office website has a lot of information out there if you ever want to look. If you want to know how to read the financial information that comes out from the auditors, it's out there. I'm going to show you where the reserve number comes from in the financial statements. Thank you. Okay. Now, if you'll go over here, okay, see that right there? It says Annual Comprehensive Financial. All that data's been out there for a long time. So if you want to go in and take a look at that financial report right there, and click, okay, it's there. This package I put together for you includes budget, which shows the reserve potential use or needs of out there. What in the world? Okay, yeah. That includes information, so it's out there as well. But when you go to the financial statements, I'm going to try to get to page. If you go to around page 74, 79, in the financial statements for every year, it will show you a line of what the reserves are and where they come from. Basically, it's like this. You work for a company, net income. We don't have net income here. We have what's called reserves, money left over. You think all of your revenue coming in, all your expenses going out, you want to have your revenue bigger than your expenses. You can carry that over year to year. That's what the reserve number means. It doesn't have a general ledger code associated with it, but it's still considered to be out there. If you look, what time? Oh my goodness. See there, revenue, expenditures go down a little bit. There you go. Okay. You'll see fund balances, that's what that means. Rolls over year to year, every single year. That number sometimes changes because the auditors make adjustments. But that number rolls over every single year. I included a little bit in here about where that comes from. I did a snapshot of what ours would look like, and it shows year over year what the reserves have been going forward, but that's where that number comes from. Now, if we wanted to start taking in less money and spending our reserves down, we can do that. But the reserves holds us in place so that we should have a downturn. There is no guarantee how much money we're gonna get in. We sure do hope we're gonna be able to get all of our things in, and Michael and I work really hard on the revenue projections. It's hard to pin it down exactly. There are a couple ways that you could do. You think about reserves that help you out. Page 127, respond to emergencies. Maintain your stable operations. If we were in the environment where we could issue bonds by ourselves, we would need a rating agency. A rating agency looks at your reserves because they think it's prudent responsibility and prudent management of your money. It reduces your borrowing costs. It's great for an economic downturn. Sometimes it's used for capital reserves, like if we want to put in a new, plant or something. What do you call those things that watch the water? Yeah, those things. Those things. It's not meant for buying pencils and pens. I just want to give y'all an idea of what it really is. There are other ways of doing it. You cannot do it, and you can raise taxes. I don't think that's really what anybody wants to do. That's what localities do when they don't have sufficient reserves to cover everything. But basically, again, net revenue minus net income, that's what that is. I mean, that is your net income number there. So that's where that comes from. And again, if you want to see budget to revenue, go to the website, look in there. I've also got a sheet out there to how to read the financial statements. I change it every year because different pages are reflected in the financial statements because page numbers change. So, any questions? Nope. I do have one more. Okay, do you have the pretty one I put out there? Let's see. It's called contract analysis. Did I put that up there? I have one more, and I hope you all have a copy of that. The contract analysis? Okay, good. So let me talk about this. So there was some discussion last time about contract vendor analysis because we have some concern about contracts. Let me explain what contracts are if you take a look at the financial statements. Some departments call contracts contracts, but they're not really contracts. It might be a contract for services, or it may be a contract like we use that place that sells plants. What's it called? Down the street. Anyway, so you might have an agreement to buy nuts and bolts with them, but you don't have a signed agreement saying we're going to always buy your nuts and bolts, True Value. We're not going to buy all of our nuts and bolts from you, but it's sort of a service, and it's sort of they've agreed to provide this. It's not a signed contract. Okay, like audit. Audit is a signed contract, but it's a separate line item in my budget. Legal fees are not a signed contract in your budget. It just says legal fees, so different things are that. Are our contractors taking advantage of us? No, they're not. But I thought it would be a good time to go through this pretty little sheet because it has a lot of information. So right now, as of the end of May, because this takes a little bit of time to put together, as of the end of May, total contract payments by all departments is $601,000. And I have listed down there which departments have how much that they have spent. The total number of vendors are counted in some of them. And as I mentioned before, that if you look at the size of the departments, sometimes they have a little bit more. And then we'll go to, you go to the next page. There we go. This is a really cool page. It talks about key insights and which one of our vendors under contracts has the most spend. Again, I'm up there at the very top with the biggest, longest line because I have the most, I pay for all of the, or my department, excuse me, pays for all of the financial systems, which comes out of the majority of our budget. The rest of them, RDA, we have Axon, which belongs to the police department. Tyler belongs to me, BAI belongs to me, and some of the other ones, different departments. Schultz Landscaping is split between other departments, so some do share them. And then the monthly charges, just ignore that one, that one doesn't make sense, the next page. And then the next one talks about, you got the next one, there we go. Towards the bottom, it just tells us like the police department total by what they've purchased. And then it's sort of a, you can tell what the biggest vendor is based on spend. I won't thrill you with every single piece of it so you can flip through it as you want to. And again, these were not considered contracts. I did town council. Doesn't include your legal fees because it is not considered a contract. It is a legal fee. But that's notated on a separate sheet. Any questions on that?
Does the flock cameras fall into this? Aren't they a vendor?
They are, but they're under a different line item. They're not as listed as a contract in the police department. They're an equipment.
Okay.
Yep. It's
Thank you.
It's a service that they provide. So, yep. I'm working on the purchasing policy. Michael and I are working on the purchasing policy. We should have that probably soon. And we can provide that to you, and you can make your comments however you see fit. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nice report. At this time, we move to community development and planning. We have 3 items from Ms. Ms. Clary.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. The first one is for 321 Smithfield Boulevard. The applicant would like to construct an accessory dwelling unit in the rear yard, approximately 742 square feet. According to Article 2Q, they do need a special use permit. The Planning Commission did favorably recommend this application to Town Council for the SUP under Article 2Q for an ADU. Any questions? Thank you. Our second one is, this is on T-Pen 2101070B. The applicants are seeking a special use permit. This is to seek relief from Article 8, which is our parking and loading, and that is so that they can have a loading space in the front yard. The Planning Commission did favorably recommend this application, conditioned on this particular applicant and this particular use only. Thank you. Cypress Crossing Development, this is our proffer amendment. This property was originally rezoned in the 90s in Isle of Wight County. The new owner, which is the Mod Wash, who is developing this area, has provided a new set of proffers, which include buffers, setbacks, landscaping, including hedge requirements, the CRNP, 12-inch water main with the gate valves and fire hydrants, a pump station, and then also the traffic improvements from their Cypress Crossing Global TIA that they promise as well. This was sent to VDOT for their review, and they did not have any additional comments. Thank you.
I have a question about this one. Did this have to come before the Planning Commission?
No,
No.
it does not.
Okay.
And it's worth noting that, since it's been in town, there has been no rezoning done because it was already zoned previously and that zoning works for this project. So the original proffers would have been done in the 90s with the county, and they're not applicable to this project. They don't reflect this project or the current needs of this project.
When did the property become ours?
When we annexed,
It was shortly
it
thereafter.
wasn't long after that, but it was after it was rezoned in the county.
So that portion of the land was part of the county at one time?
Correct.
So
Okay.
follow down later. Michael, you said the staff recommendation is we actually have a public hearing.
Correct. I mean,
Start the whole process.
the way our process is set up is you can amend proffers without a public hearing, but it was a recommendation that we hold a public hearing to do it and put everything out there. And again, with it being a new project, it has not had a rezoning in town limits because, again, the underlying zoning already works. That just puts it out there and everybody has an opportunity to comment on it.
I'm sorry, I'm probably going to ask a really obvious question, but why, normally when we have setbacks and all that sort of thing, that goes through the Planning Commission, and why does this not?
This isn't a rezoning.
Okay.
It's just a new set of proffers.
Okay, got it. But they're kind of the ones, excuse me, that look at the
Right,
proffers
and
and.
it's not asking for setback changes or any of that.
Okay, so it just goes with what the zoning is.
Correct, and what it
Okay.
is them committing to, put in the infrastructure that's required, them committing to, the pump station, the road improvements, those sorts of things, that way there's a document that we can use to
Sure.
make sure that they do that.
Absolutely, okay, thank you.
Michael, if I'm not mistaken, this project was by right.
Correct.
Okay.
Has the site plan and whatever they're going to do on the property already been approved?
It has not been finalized yet,
The Mod Wash and the pump station have been.
Mm-hmm.
but nothing beyond
But
that.
nothing beyond.
Right.
We don't have any more information on anything else there?
They're working on a comprehensive infrastructure plan for the area at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Just one follow-up about the proffers that you mentioned in
Yes.
the email. So the county can't they just cited some specifics in plan cabinets and everything, but so we didn't get any of those documents? There's nothing
We
there?
asked the county to provide the proffers that were part of the original approval back in the 90s, and they do not have them, and none were recorded at the courthouse. So typically, you would record them at the courthouse, and then they're part of the deed and go forever, but none were ever recorded back when the property was rezoned.
Well, so does maybe the property owner have them? I mean, they're referencing
They
very
mentioned in
specific.
the minutes that there were proffers, but no, we can't find them. Again, we've asked the county to look in their records. They did not have any. And again, there weren't any recorded at the courthouse, so we can't, there's nothing beyond that we can do. Neither one of those locations have them.
I mean, that's kind of unusual, right? I mean,
Yeah, normally they would get recorded. I mean, the other caveat is they would have been tied to the project that was approved then. It
Sure.
wouldn't necessarily be relevant to the project today. So whatever, again, this developer is proffering to do the roadway improvements, the drainage, the storm, the pump station, those things that are needed for this project. So this gives us that document that legally makes them do that.
thank you.
I don't know, it's a little confusing. It's dated June 17th of this year, so just about a month ago, and on the first page, they reference a plan cabinet. Is there?
We looked.
Just doesn't.
Yeah, we looked and they're not there. There's no record of them being recorded at the courthouse. And the county went through the files that they have from back then and do not have them.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. Michael, what happens if they do show up after after public hearing and new proffers? Is there any?
These new proffers would override the old ones. So the document you had in front of you would be what would
That's standard.
be the prevailing.
So
Correct.
whether, seeing what may or may not exist is not important to the project as we move forward.
Not to this new project, no. It would have been relevant to what the project was previously.
So our next step is the public hearing.
Correct. We'll do the public hearing on these amended proffers, and then after that public hearing, council would either elect to approve them or not approve them. If you don't approve them, then we have no way to hold them to these infrastructure improvements because we wouldn't have a proper document.
Any other further questions? Hearing none, Michael, you need to talk on the rezoning and
Yes, sir.
recently purchased town property.
Included in your packet is the survey that was done on the property we recently purchased at the intersection of 10 and 258, as well as an initial rezoning application for that property. There seemed to be a desire amongst council to have it rezoned back to the Community Conservation Zoning District, and this rezoning application would do that. And we just wanted to put it before council and make sure this was still the direction you wanted to go. If so, we'll start this process. Also, as part of this, the museum director is working on an RFP now for the additional archaeological surveys that were discussed previously. So once she gets that done and put that on the street, we're thinking between $5,000 and $10,000 to do that work. But she is working on that for us.
Any other further questions for Michael? This time, I need a nominating committee for an individual that needs to be appointed or new appointment or reappointment of Beth Haywood. And I'd like for Mrs. Butler and Mr. Brooks to head that up, if you will.
All right.
Item number 5, we have additional items of discussion. Discussion item, PC guidance. Has there been any, one received any documents or communication on this plan that Mr. Cutler has presented at this time?
I have not received any comments from anybody. It's on the agenda today to hopefully have that conversation and get direction from council on where you'd like to go with it.
Mr. Mayor, I haven't received any comments from the council or the staff directly. I have received a lot of comments from our citizens.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't send any comments in because I thought that it was on our agenda today and that we would discuss it line by line.
Right, that's what I was understanding.
That was my impression as well.
And, you know, just as a caveat, I think the attorney and staff were both here to answer any questions, or if we think something's going outside the legal bounds for some reason, but beyond that, it's a policy level discussion that has to happen between council to get that policy direction. So I just wanted to put that, again, that's why you haven't gotten anything from us is, you know, this is a policy question for you guys to give direction on.
Mr. Mayor, if I,
Mr. Cullen, since you orchestrated this, would you like to go ahead and do the first line item and talk
Yes, sir.
about that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So the first one was, do not change zoning laws in ways that increase density. Instead, revise zoning laws that further reinforce the standards and consistency for our citizens and remove special use permit workarounds that permit increasing density beyond our zoning laws. So the clearest example of this would be a current movement to put special use permits across those 8 categories that we saw before, thereby making no concrete zoning laws effectively. So I think that first guidance point should be to the Planning Commission to not do that and instead revise our zoning laws to reinforce the standards and consistency for our citizens.
Everyone understand that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Sort of an easy one for me because it's sort of a no-brainer. One of the things that I found interesting in the Times reporting on this in particular is that the Planning Commission feels that we have not given them any particular guidance, and I guess what Darren is suggesting is that we formalize this and come up with some sort of direct policy statement. A lot of us have been clear, and in fact, the last 2 meetings, I know Darren has said it, Mary Ann has said it, and I've said it on a number of occasions. The primary guidance statement offered to Planning Commission that we have done over and over again is exactly what number 1 says. Follow the laws, our zoning laws that are in place now. Do not accept any SUPs that are designed to increase density. Limit the amount of SUPs that you are considering and move forward. And some of the things we've heard back as well, that might limit creativity and, you know, we won't be able to work with this and that. And, you know, some of the discussion response to that, you know, from our side, when it takes too much time and, you know, this and that, to say that it's not broke and doesn't need fixing is a little bit of an oversimplification, you know, from my standpoint. I believe, and I think it's in here somewhere in Darren's remarks, if there is a complete dissatisfaction with the zoning laws as they exist, that might be a whole nother different issue, and that would be something that we would attack differently. But at this point, I hope council will join me in saying that the principal suggestion for guidance back to PC is do what is written at this point and do not bend over backwards to create the opportunity for SUPs that violate, frankly, our existing codes.
Yeah, and I think it's real important to mention with that we have a broad range of SUPs, and many of them are necessary, and we had several of them on the agenda for today that we'll be seeing next month. So, you know, just for clarity, state the obvious is that it's not an against all SUPs. There are many that make sense and many that are necessary, but there's also many instances where zoning laws could be written with better thought to protect our citizens and provide consistency.
And to that point, consistency should be one of the key words. And to Darren's first point, and we've heard it on a number of occasions, you know, we're anti-SUP and, you know, we're not willing to follow along. That's just simply not true. This council has endorsed and passed approval on a number of SUPs, none of which were designed to increase density, but were found by council in overwhelming vote 6070 or 6170 right across the board. So it's not the issue of SUPs itself. For us, it's the issue of SUP that violates the codes as they are written.
And I think too that there's a time and a place for SUPs. And we have demonstrated that there is, but there's a reason we have zoning laws and we follow the zoning laws. That's it. If you want to rewrite the zoning laws, that's a whole different thing, but that's not what we're saying. And we've been very clear with the Planning Commission, telling them that there's a time and a place for SUPs. We just don't want to have this broad brush. And I think this is what is targeting that for them. Even though we've said it, it puts it in writing, makes a policy statement.
Mayor Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
Referencing to what Darren said about the project that you all are working on in planning, dealing with the land matrix, I didn't think that you all were at a point, it's like you all backtracked and you're taking the different zonings or the districts that we have, and you're going through each one of those to make a decision, which does not include the last 8 items that seem to be the most controversial. You know, I have a question about saying that we're violating codes with SUPs, which are against our zoning laws. Really, that's not what our SUPs are doing. I want some clarification from my standpoint is, are you all saying that you don't want SUPs or don't want to approve SUPs where it increases density? Because if that's the case, that needs to be pointed out. I know planning is looking for some direction from us, and that's what their job is. One of the things that, maybe I misunderstood it, we don't want a project if it doesn't fit into this new box that we're looking to develop. We don't want to waste staff's time to even consider it. But I vividly remember Chair Hildegard saying that that's planning's job and they should be open to looking at every project. And honestly, I feel that if we don't want to consider SUPs where they increase density and tell that to the Planning Commission, I think that they will follow that. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with no SUPs to increase density because of the very project that we had, which only increased density by 2 units. I think that that's unrealistic. I think that there is a place for SUPs and density to work together.
I would say that is a self-proclaimed purpose of the Planning Commission. I don't think that's what's written in the town charter as to what the purpose of the Planning Commission is. The chairman may think that's the purpose, is to consider every option, but that's not actually it. And in the positions where there's not SUPs, take those 8 topics that don't all currently have SUPs, what we have instead is fixed zoning laws with fixed limits on things like number of lots per acre, setbacks, parking, and rules that developers have to follow, as opposed to our other districts where we have SUPs that are open and we wind up with situations of influence peddling and trying to meet with developers, trying to meet individually with council members and planning commissioners to try to sway their vote, because the rules aren't fixed in those districts. And I mean, I know there's been numerous attempts to influence me and many other members on this council and have private meetings with developers, and I feel like if we have more rules and less opportunities for influence to impact the rules, then there will be less efforts at that.
The backpedaling and influencing, I don't really interpret as that. If a developer is looking to develop a project here in Smithfield, in the past, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've met with the community director to present their presentation to that person. And from my experience with Tammy, it's very hard to persuade her personally. She basically quotes that this is how it has, well, I don't even know if she talks approval process, but they present their project and Tammy lets them know how it relates to what our zoning and ordinances are. Now, just one of the more recent developments where we talk with a developer about the promontory, I didn't look at that meeting as someone trying to influence me per se. I looked at it as being a presentation that they like to come before us and actually sharing that information with us. I take offense when we say that we're trying to be influenced by the developers, or we're making backdoor decisions, or some of us are getting paid under the table. And that's what a lot of citizens have said on social media. And those negative statements, I can't speak for the 7 of us, but I know as far as I'm concerned, I have not had any of that done.
I'm gonna jump in there too, excuse me, Darren. Yeah, there's been no influence peddling with me. I will categorically deny that, and no offense, Mr. Cutler, but it is a little offensive when you paint this broad brush. I have met with one developer one time that was with the promontory, and that resulted in fewer homes, not more homes. So that was how we met, and that was when it was in the planning process, and we were able to get it down to less homes. But that was one meeting. So that's all I've done, and so please do not paint a broad brush that somehow we are being influenced, or I'm being influenced, because I am not. Thank you.
Well, that wasn't said. It was what was said was that it allows the opportunity for influence, and I consider that a developer trying to call and have a one-on-one meeting with me, trying to have an influence, especially when I told him I wouldn't. We have an opportunity for them to come and speak with us in the meeting, in public. So that was my position and my decision to make. There were no accusations, and there's no accusations of money. And I agree with Ms. Butler that the rumors and things that float around aren't helpful. But we also don't do any favors to them when we make our zoning laws fungible, when we make them so flexible that we don't actually have a zoning law. Now we have a half dozen SUPs to create zoning on the fly instead of using the laws that we have. And so my point about influence is that when you're making up the zoning laws on the fly, and you can draw a line to that to dollars and cents if you want. What I'm talking about is people trying to communicate and sway the way you're going to vote rather than communicate in the meeting to 7 people how they're going to vote. But when we don't have zoning laws and we have ways around them that apply in broad swaths to hundreds of acres of land instead of one plot of land that our citizen wants to build an ADU on, or one plot of land that a local business owner wants to expand his business on. I think that's a lot different than an SUP. That's the same SUP that our citizens getting, that's $400, and the developer is getting the same SUP for $400 applied across 100 acres of land or 100 lots. So I don't think that it's fair by process to our citizens.
And I can live with that. Maybe that is not equitable for an individual citizen to pay the same amount for an SUP as a developer. And maybe that's something that we can enhance. I like some input from Tammy from the standpoint of, are we being realistic in what we're asking for? Well, first of all, Darren, I would like to have the clarification of, we don't want SUPs where it increased density. Is that what we want in our zoning laws? No SUPs if it increases density? Because I'm still confused about that.
Yeah, well, so I think, and not to belabor the point, but even, so the second point that I made was a written point that two people seem to be taking offense to, but what I sent to you was a starting point to improve and to help with. You know, it wasn't, I didn't send to this to set to the other 6 people and say, here's the advice we're giving the Planning Commission. I sent an email and I said, I requested your input and help with this. So, you know, if one bullet is offensive, then we can change it. Now, as far as the SUPs
is not where the
go,
offense is. Number 2 is where the offense is, because that's where you said SUP availability allows the peddling of influence or appearance of impropriety in town business.
right, and so those rumors that you're discussing about on social media don't come from nowhere. They come from people gaining that perception for whatever reason it is. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying it's valid, but I'm saying that those rumors start from some source. I don't know what they are. I'm not saying that bullet number 2 and that the peddling of influence or the appearance of impropriety is the right wording. All I'm saying is do not increase the use or availability of SUPs, put greater effort into writing effective zoning regulations, rather than create rampant SUV availability. And the whole end of that sentence could go away. I'm perfectly flexible and open to it. I've presented this and created this for an opportunity to work together with the other six of you.
Okay, that's why in number 1, I'd like to know, are we looking to not offer SUPs where it increases density? That's pretty much what that first one says. So we don't want any SUPs where it increases density. So is that how we want that listed, or pass that information on to planning?
We would have to go around and say that, but I will say it again. My standpoint is yes, we want to make sure that we do not allow SUPs on the face of them whose sole purpose is to increase density.
Regardless to what the density is.
Regardless of what the density is, because once you hit that caveat, regardless of what the density is, you're questioning the zoning ordinance itself. And we have zoning ordinances in places like six per acre, 4 per acre, 3 per acre. If we're not happy with that, then we need to step away from this particular discussion and have another one and rewrite our zoning and expand the number of units in each zoning district. That's one way to do it.
I understand that, Bill, but we had a situation not long ago where we tried to do that. And we had pushback from town council to say, if the previous people who wrote that zoning wanted that, they would have said that. Now, we've done some amendments on our zoning before, so it sounds like going forward, maybe we don't do any more amendments, since we say that particular groups who write the zoning laws that they wrote it and this is the way it should be. You remember when we looked at maybe amending the zoning or the units per acre in the historic district based on the research that Tammy and her staff had done, where they took pockets in the historic district and the current zoning that we had did not even compare to the actual units per parcel in the historic district.
I remember it very well, and I probably didn't say it. Almost everything built in the historic district was used as an example preceded every zoning law that Smithfield has ever developed. That comparison for me was almost apples to oranges. Gray Street and Main Street were developed 1700s, early 1800s, without zoning requirements. People built this, they built that, they did this, they did that. To go back and then count the number of buildings in an acre and suggest that does fall in or does not fall in our existing codes, for me was a bit of a stretch. I take your point, but I will go back to what you said earlier. The one where the request was to add 2, to go from 8 to 10.
6 to 8.
Yeah, 6 to 8 or 8 to 10.
8 to 10.
Yeah. Was that a really big deal? Is it a drop in the bucket? One side of the argument would say yes, that's a drop in the bucket. The other would say that that's greasing the rabbit hole. If we say yes to that guy, we're going to have to say yes to this guy that has a double lot that wants to put 2 houses on his lot there. I'll just go back to what I said at the beginning and said several times to Planning Commission in those meetings. I'm happy with the existing laws or existing zoning codes as they exist. And to answer your question specifically, I'm okay with not allowing SUPs that are designed solely to increase density in those areas. We came in, I spent 6 or 8 months beating that drum, to slow development. We can't slow development if we continue to, the word you use, wraparounds or workarounds, if we continue to allow the developers to even think that, yeah, I'm only supposed to put 4 here, but maybe I can do this and do this and do that, and, Planning Commission will push that up the street. It just seems like a big headache to get to, at least with this council, the same place, because we are on record as voting those down in the past, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay, Tammy, then you have direction from, I guess, probably the majority of town council, that they do not want to issue SUPs to increase density. So I guess that would be an approval that can go directly to the Planning Commission.
If I may, what I would like to do or suggest is that we go through the points, kind of come up with what I'm hearing are the consensus. We put that together and council actually vote on it. Because then it's not, I wrote something down. It is, here's what I heard council say. Council then can look at that document and say yes and vote them as guiding principles for Planning Commission and send them down.
Yeah,
Okay.
Goes from being guidelines to being policy.
Right, because that's ultimately what it is, because until council officially votes on something, you don't have an official policy.
Exactly.
And so I think that's been some of the issue, is that we've met with Planning Commission and have said things, but there's been no official, and in those meetings, they definitely weren't consensus. So I think it's worth the effort to go through the points, and if they all merge to 2 points or 3, whatever it is, then we come back with a document that here's what we heard. Is this what you believe? You said, vote on it, because then it's done and there's no more questions.
So I think we've wrapped up number 1 then.
Number 1, I hear, guidance that the Planning Commission does not approve SUPs that are solely for the increasing of density.
We need to then tackle the PMUD because it was specifically designed to require an SUP in order to allow that increased density, because the densities that followed the AR and the SR moved over into PMUD.
Yeah, I think there's got to be an acknowledgement that after this guideline is done, we may have to go back and revisit, because again, that's, when Planning Commission set the PMUD up, they set it up specifically that everything was a SUP.
Right.
And so I think the PMUDs are going to have a complete rewrite.
And I think that's why there were several of us, even before we got on council, were not in favor of a PMUD because it was so messy and there was a little too much wiggle room.
So, sorry, so we've got.
May I jump in real quickly, because it relates to this? I'm looking at the 8 topics, and the discourse, or the differences in opinions of Planning Commission, make them all SUPs, make none of them SUPs. So we got to find somewhere in between. But as it relates to this, and this is the existing that we currently have on the books, when we look at number 1, and remove SUP workarounds, so are we, I want to go into this conversation knowing where we're heading. Are we really looking at starting to remove what's existing, or are we just looking at what's the new platform going to be? Because quite honestly, the comment that council has not been giving Planning Commission direction, I almost feel like we're trying to parent two children that can't come up with a solution. And therefore, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but it's almost like we're in a no-win situation. It's like, well, this guy wants this, and this lady wants that, and now it's coming together, and I'm more than happy, and I think we have a great group of people that can get this done. I just need to know, are we really going back to these 8 things, or should we just kind of keep that off to the side for now, and let's just kind of figure out where we want to go?
I would just use those as an example and stick to more general direct statements that are policy. Do not change zoning laws in ways that increase density, rather than saying do 7 of these 8 things or 6 of these 8 things, right? If we say that to the Planning Commission, and then we also say revise zoning laws that further reinforce standards of consistency and remove SUP workarounds, well, that's pretty clear, right? And they know better than we do about those 8 topics as well. So I think giving specific guidance rather than let them do the devil's details would be better. I think number 2 and 3 could probably come together. So do not increase the use or availability of SCPs, instead put greater effort into writing effective zoning regulations. So there's clearly many places that can use SUPs, but there's also room to make a decision about each one of them as they come across, and that's what's happening right now, I believe. But what's happening right now is probably an increased use or availability when we could put more effort into writing a zoning law that'll provide consistency through regulation to our citizens. For instance, there was some discussion about the max height is a good example, right? So, if we have a max height of, say, 45 feet, and then we have an SUP, so it can be 145 feet, and we have to entertain anything that comes across. But then somebody said, well, you're going to want to not let somebody build their house if it's 46 and a half feet, Well, what I say to that is the rule has to end somewhere, right? It's, when we pull somebody over for drinking under the influence, we don't say 0.09, that's close enough, and if we did, we probably wouldn't think that was okay. So I feel like that's a more extreme example, of course, but I feel like that we rely on the Planning Commission to make a recommendation with consensus on what's a reasonable zoning law, not, we don't want to write a reasonable zoning law for this, so let's just make it an SUP, right? I think it's a better practice and better for our citizens and more effective governance if we put effort, even if it's a large amount of effort, into writing a good zoning law. And if at the end of that we come to the conclusion, say, well, this is one of those situations, right? This is probably a good situation to have an SUP. I don't know what that situation is, but they're out there, right? Maybe it's our signs, right? Some of our signs are really hard to comply with things, right? So those are great examples for SUPs, but when we remove consistency, especially residential consistency from our citizens, I think that's where we create more problems than we solve with SUPs.
And I think that there's a difference too in drawing a distinction between the residential and the commercial. And that's one of the things that the Planning Commission likes to bring up with commercial, is that that's why they like to use SUPs, so that they have better decision-making what goes where. They didn't have that. That's why they ended up with 2 auto parts stores next to each other. That's the example that's used all the time. And in that case, yes, I don't think any of us have issues with that kind of an SUP to have some guidance or control of what goes where. But I think the lines are blurred when you're talking residential and it is these blanket things, and that's what I think we've been saying for a long time, is we don't want these blanket SUPs. There's a special use permit. It's special. It's not everyone gets a trophy special. So that's where we have to draw the line.
So I would say about number 2, I would probably revise it, delete after availability, and put a period after availability, and then I take the first sentence out of number 3 and bring that up. Continue to make the zoning laws easier for citizens to understand and apply. And you do that through writing zoning instead of having SUPs. Then number 3, while doing so, adapt rules to ensure developers have to pay for and justify each individual SUP per lot versus past use of blanket SUPs as a standalone. That first sentence of number 3 belongs with number 2.
Darren, I embrace the idea of number 3, but the adapt rules to ensure developers, that's not a task for the Planning Commission. Wouldn't we have to do that?
I don't know, honestly.
I mean, ultimately, the establishment of those ordinances is a town council decision. Planning Commission would recommend changes.
Could make recommendations.
Council gets the final say on ordinances, regulations, things of that nature.
So instead of adapt, they would recommend rules to ensure.
Yeah, while doing so, just delete the while doing so. Recommend rules to ensure developers have to pay for and justify each individual SUP per lot, blah, blah, blah.
I have a question for the attorney. Can we have different prices for different applicants? I mean, an individual versus a developer? Or is it based on per lot? Is that how it would read?
Exactly, let me find out.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a note to look into that too, because if somebody's coming in, generally an SUP is on a parcel.
Right.
And so if the parcel is 100 acres when they apply for it, that's one parcel.
Right.
If they had already subdivided it and had 100 parcels,
Right.
then it would be 100 different SUPs.
Yes.
But if they do it on one parcel, we have to legally check and see what the bounds are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to figure that out, because they're saying, we're going to turn this one parcel into 100 parcels. That's the whole point. Right. So I don't think that, I'm sure we can figure that out.
We'll look at the legalities of those pieces.
Yeah, there's got to be an equal protection. You're right. I mean, you raised the issue. You can't treat people differently, but I think that the parcel thing is different.
But that's actually what's happened, is we're treating our citizens differently, right? I can get an SUP for $400, and that one parcel that's going to have 260 lots can get the same SUP for $400 to apply it to 260 lots.
May I ask a question for clarity on this redraft? You were going to move the sentence that says continue to work to make the zoning laws easier for citizens to understand and apply up to be the concluding line for 2, correct?
Correct.
I would strike while doing so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that. Just start.
Okay.
Strike adapt and say recommend rules to the council to ensure developers.
Thank you.
And then number 4, I mean, I think as far as commencing the comprehensive plan review, in the grand scheme of things of deciding what type of services we're going to use for it and how we're going to apply our new budget for studies or whatnot to assist in that. I think it's good advice or good policy to give direction to go ahead and commence preparation and start that with the revising the future land use map.
Agreed.
But I would note, and for the planning commission specifically, the second line, revise the flume to put available in CC, or justify otherwise, so protecting all of our neighborhoods. So we do have, I think, the one neighborhood that has maybe a zoning mismatch, and it's residential or commercial bordering on residential, so that that may be a clear area that shouldn't be CC, but. I think that makes sense like it's written.
The only thing I want to say about SUPs is I have, when you start limiting someone that's, say you got a particular house on a piece of property and you got 45 feet as your height. Well, you walk around the back of the house and it's 60 feet because he's got a basement. So what do? You tell him he can't have the basement? I mean, this is a little small, rare instance, case may come up, but then, to me, that limits his ability to have what looks like from the street a 45-foot house, but in the back, it's 60 foot, or whatever the case may be. I'm just throwing numbers out there. So he wouldn't be able to apply for that special use permit on that one little lot to satisfy the slope of the land. And so,
Michael, for me, that's not a problem because that does not include the density in that particular.
yeah, but if as far as height does, it would if you didn't want to go to an SUP on height.
But where are the measurements taken? Aren't they taken from the street? They're not taken from the back of the house? I mean, I don't know the rules. I don't know how that works. Tammy, how does?
We get in the weeds with that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying little small things like that pop
Yeah.
up. Now I'm saying, well, shoot, I didn't really mean for that to happen
Yeah.
to this individual.
Unintended
So
consequences, right?
There's got to be some kind of compromise of
The black and white response to that would be if we have given this potential home builder all of the information out front, he should know that he can't come in and build a house 46 feet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's almost.
And typically the elevations are taken from the grade.
Right.
Well,
Is what it is. So.
And as Bill's saying, I mean, they're coming to planning with a site plan, right? They have no materials, they have a site plan and a dream, right, at that point. So that is the point where they learn,
I'm just trying to be cautious about trying to exclude someone that could have something very viable, and whether it be a home or business, and then be restricted because of some SUP that's in the way that he could apply for and then be considered for. And it all comes back to us anyway. Even if they recommend it, we can say yes or no. So I don't want to close out one individual or several individuals that might need that SUP to be looked at so they could be considered to move on with their project.
What I'll say right now is the guidance that's currently being drafted does not remove that option for somebody. That would only be if you did a change to the zoning ordinance and removed that. Right now, that option would still exist, and based off this guidance, Planning Commission could look at it and say, well, that doesn't increase density, we can consider that.
Yeah, it says don't increase the use or availability, put greater effort into writing effective zoning regulations. So, to use that as an example, Mr. Mayor, that might be the example of, no, that's the one where we decide that's the place we want to have an SUP. But that should be at the conclusion of an exhaustive effort to write a good law, right? And if they get to the end and they say, well, We just can't really, we don't feel like we can do justice for our citizens in this case, so let's make an SUP available, right? That makes sense, but the current effort is to broaden and expand the use, whereas the current guidance by our voting citizens is to slow and reduce the use.
And I think we've done that in the last couple of years. We've done a good job of that. We've inherited some things that we didn't have any control over. And the developments that were approved, we've reduced those numbers of density in those particular cases. We've worked with developers, had the opportunity, and to tell them what we wanted to do. And they have listened to us. So I'm not into this point where we're being bought or influenced or peddled or anything like that. I feel like we have done a hell of a job of really holding these numbers down on developments that have been here that were already inherited. We've done that, and even the new one came with the promontory. That 4 times we've asked them to come back to us, and they did exactly what we asked them to do. And I think we have done a fantastic job of really handling what we inherited and what has been proposed to us in front of us to make the final decisions. So I just don't want to get into a point where we just restrict everything because we think that's what everybody wants. An SUP is not a bad thing. And you can make it a bad thing if you want to, but it's not a peddling device to make us be influenced, to change our decision. I got a mind of my own. I can tell you no if I want to, or I can tell you yes. So, and that's why people voted for me, was to represent them. And I'm not going to misrepresent them by doing something they didn't want me to do.
And then the 5th one was to coordinate with county planning, develop zoning laws to protect our schools. So the county has done that work, my understanding, this is as I understand it. They can now accept proffers for their schools, for neighborhoods that are built. And we need to contribute as well in the future if we have housing built in Smithfield. So I think it may be planning. I think there's a planning role in it, certainly, as the laws are concerned. Definitely a legal role here to get our, forgive me for not knowing what it is, but whatever we have to do to get on board with the county where, you know, if somebody comes and builds a promontory 2 with 200 more homes, that's going to push our school over 100%, that we proactively have the zoning laws in place to be able to accept proffers for our schools.
What I would say is that exists. The problem, we were always set up to do that. The problem was the school board and the county was not. And so when we send a project to those entities and say review this for impacts, they now should be able to give us something that lets us go back to the developers and say, here's the impact. We will take a look at that to make sure it's up to date, but now that they've got their stuff in order, we should be in that position.
Yeah, I know they had work to do, but the legal advice that I got for a really long time was that we didn't have the laws in place to do that.
Well, they didn't have their CIP.
We
so that's
who?
the problem. The county.
I acknowledge
didn't
that,
have the CIP.
but that we had work to do as well was.
We'll definitely look into that, but I think we're in good shape there.
Darren, I got a question. How you feel, how is it that we didn't have things in place?
I would say it's probably an intergovernmental thing. You know, I think between the county and the school board and the town, you know, retrospectively or whatever, hindsight's 20/20, but it looked like, you know, they had the classrooms were moved around, so they didn't have the accurate reflection, and then whatever items have to be so whatever the proffer law changed like 4 years ago. So whatever that was that changed, it changed where we could no longer get proffers. So I'm not the lawyer, but that, you know, we need to fix that problem.
But I think we've always done what we were required to do because for any development, we always sent out due diligence reports for the different agencies, and one was to send to the school system. We have this subdivision that we are reviewing, and it will add 100 capacity to your school systems. Are you able to handle this capacity? So we did what we were supposed to do. I think the problem was with the county, that maybe they weren't looking at cumulative numbers, or they were just looking at individual projects.
And that may be the case. My real point is, we don't want to wait until we can't turn back and fix it, right? Just like the promontory had already submitted, so we could have fixed our laws, and the county could have fixed their laws, done whatever they wanted, but we couldn't have held them to account for proffers. So the point is, let's make sure now that we are in compliance with the law, that we can accept proffers from what the work that the county has done, not wait until somebody's trying to build 25 houses down the road and we say, hey, we want some school proffers, and they say, oh no, y'all don't meet the requirements for it. Let's be ahead of that and be proactive and make sure that we can.
Do we ask for school proffers? I mean, we don't really have any budgeting process for the school systems.
If the school indicates that there's an impact, we will forward that to the developer and ask them to address it.
But the school system makes that decision. Okay.
So Michael, it sort of goes to your point earlier about this whole idea of writing all of this down. If I'm hearing Darren correctly, he's saying we also need to write this down so everybody knows in advance that our expectations.
It's already on the books. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that already exists. That's already part of our process, is to seek a developer to pay their impacts, regardless of what infrastructure it's on. And historically, we had always gotten information from the schools, no impacts. So once we get that, we can't ask them for anything, or they can't.
No, we can't ask them, right.
But now that, if the schools are in a position now to say, well, here's the impact, then the developer can say, well, we'll meet that. Before, we were getting indications from them that there was no impact. That was the end of the discussion. But again, we'll look into it and make sure that what's on the books is, compliant, and it puts us in a position.
I guess I would worry about who's giving them the information that they need to make the decision of whether there's an impact or not an impact. That's a private individual that's been hired by the developer to do that. Is that correct?
We review it. The schools system also reviews it to see if the numbers that they're match what they would say. So they don't just take it on face value. They actually review the reports and ensure that it's correct. Same thing with VDOT. Just because the developer says something, VDOT still reviews it and agrees or disagrees with their findings.
And Mike, I did find out from the county that with their IT or computer information that they use, they have the capability of calculating the capacity in the school systems based on the numbers that they come up with.
That's a slippery slope, I know. It's just, education, I'm big on education. I like everybody
Definitely.
to get the education,
It's definitely
And here's the other thing. When you start asking people for something that's in the town, well, I'm in the county too. That means my citizens are already paying for something right now, so we are too. So then double paying if, that's bothering me, trying to work through that to make sure that we don't overpay and that we do the right thing. So,
well, I don't think paying proffers in town equivalent to what they would pay in the county would be overpaying. It would be the same.
well,
He was generalizing about the way like the roundabout we paid as citizens of the town, and we'd already paid as citizens of the county, so that's the kind of stuff.
yeah.
So, Michael, what I'm hearing is you're going to take all these comments and put them into some
We
sort
will.
of,
And I'll work with the attorney, sounds like he was taking some good notes too, and we'll make sure that we try to capture what we heard and put it in a way that makes sense, and then bring it back and let you guys, you know, bless it or not bless it.
can we put that one on the front burner?
We'll try to have it for the next council meeting, which you would be able to then vote on it.
Okay.
And I think too, and Darren's already been combining sentences and taking words out, the simpler the document, the better.
Correct.
That's
You know,
always
and,
in general.
You know, this, just little things, you know, like when we talk about contribute to our overflowing schools, I'd probably take overflowing out because that's assuming a condition. You know, so we'll wordsmith it and make it one of those things that makes sense. And
Yeah, it's going to transition from an email that I
Yeah.
sent to a policy document.
yeah, and we'll do that in a way that we don't try not to change the message.
Can we see it before we vote on it?
Oh, by all means, it'll be part of your package. You know, it will be under a discussion item for you to talk about again.
Oh, okay,
And in the meeting, you could wordsmith it.
okay.
There's nothing that would prevent you from doing that.
Okay.
Just to clarify expectations, it is staff's recommendation that there's an SUP across the board for waiver of landscape screening open space. That is because Virginia code does require a mechanism for relief for tree canopy requirements.
We can
Okay, if that's all, we'll move to item B, 5B, speed limit reduction. Michael?
There had been some discussion at a previous work session for us to investigate the ability to lower speed limits in the town. The areas that were specifically of concern were South Church Street and Main Street, but also looked at the town as a whole. So I reached out to the area land use engineer with VDOT and asked about the process. And he referenced a state code section, it's 46.2-1300 that's included in your packet, that requires that a speed study be done before posting or lowering a speed limit. And I had him confirm that that's even on roads that we own and maintain. It has to comply with the state code. So anywhere that council would be interested in evaluating the speed limit to potentially lower it, we would have to do a state study. I did touch base with one of our on-call engineers, and he estimated the cost of that to be around $5,000 per location. So based off that, I wanted to see if there were areas council wanted us to engage them to go ahead and do that work, and just have a general conversation about, you know, how you wanted us to move forward with this, because it does not appear that we have the ability to just make the speed limit what we want it to be.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Real quick, as it relates to the regulation. So I'm reading it too. And increase or decrease the speed limit within its boundaries, provided such increase or decrease in speed shall be based upon a study. Now, does that mean, that says to me we can hire somebody and say, we want to reduce the speed limit, will you do a study? And you know it's all about how you ask the question when you do a study, it's how you frame the question. This just doesn't really give any, it doesn't say the speed limit reduction or increase has to improve or do anything. It just says you have to do a study. Is there no more than?
Well, it doesn't even say you have to do a study. The part that you highlighted says engineering and traffic investigation. Does it use the word study?
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying,
investigation,
we could
study.
say, you know, we could have Chief Howell stand on Church Street and say, yeah, these cars are going too fast. I mean, that's an investigation in my mind. And then we have Ed there that says, you know, that the roads can't handle this, or I'm just.
If you read through the email from the VDOT area land use,
I
it
mean,
gets
he
a little
says the
more
word
in depth
study.
than that,
I mean,
but
I'm just
you do
looking at
have
the
to.
law.
Right.
I mean,
You do have to do
Yeah.
an engineering
Okay.
study, and the engineering study has to recommend it.
But it sounds like a lot of it is gonna be based on crash history
It's
too.
gonna be based off of the conditions, the geometry of the road, all of those various things that go into play, and it will recommend what the safe speed limit should be.
to that.
Factors such as coming park to park trail and things like that would factor into that too.
All of that factors in, the park-to-park trail, the requirements for how far it is off the road it takes into account the existing speed limit. So if the speed limit stayed the same, the park trail would be built. You know, the clear zones are different based off of speed limits. But that sort of stuff could be added to what they take into account.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of ways we can influence, should we want to. And then one of the questions you asked about, you know, priority areas, I think the comprehensive plan, as far as its, you know, enriching of the South Church Street area, doesn't say to reduce the speed limit, but if you had all those business, you know, additional businesses in there, it would probably enhance that. But the other area, West Main Street from Luter Sports Complex until it goes to 25, that area seems to me like one of our highest pedestrian areas, and where we have that escalating speed limits from 25, 35, 45, 55 over a very short,
Couple hundred yards.
yeah, very short duration
We
in
can
front of a
definitely
school.
Look at the other thing you have to remember is once we lower a speed limit to 25, golf carts can then drive on that road unless we do some additional legal things. I'm sure we can prohibit it in our ordinance, but just keep that in the back of your mind too, that once something hits 25, unless we do something to prevent it, golf carts will be allowed.
Well, even if that went down to, I mean, if we did a study that went from the 25 to the 55 or 35 to the 55, you know, maybe 35 is the right answer from the school on, you know. I don't know, but, you know, Luter Sports Complex expansion, potentially, whatever's going on with the school, another football field. I just think a lot of pedestrians over there.
If that's a primary area, we can make that the first place we tackle, and I can get them to give us a scope of work from where it's existing 25 all the way to Waterworks Road.
Would it be prudent to try one first rather than do multiple steps?
There's a lot of, my issue though, yes, there's a lot of pedestrians there, but do we maybe just need better crosswalks or something like that? There are none, that's exactly it. Because I don't know that there are too many crashes there, but there are an awful lot of crashes on Ben's Church Boulevard, Church Street. You know, there are certain pockets, and we could get the, you know, chief to come in here and tell us. He can count on one hand how many times they're there on traffic accidents. So, you know, yes, that area is important. There's a lot of kids there, but I almost think, I don't know if it's speed or whatever.
We'll definitely look into that. The only thing, and I asked this question to the VDOT folks, and I didn't get an answer. Only thing to be concerned about is I have seen in places where if the speed limit was, say, hypothetically 35, they did the study and all the data said it should be 45. On a VDOT road, they're going to raise it. So just know that if there are situations like that, whatever the speed study says is probably what they're going to do on their roads. And this section of West Main is there. I don't think that'll be the case here, but just keep that in the back of your mind too.
Well, similarly, kind of think about what Ms. Beavermeyer said, and thinking about the crosswalks down as you come across the bridge, and just the visual occurrence of them, you know, breaks up the roadway, and I think draws your attention even if the lights aren't flashing. So maybe, I guess my question is, should we decide to perhaps try to put in some crosswalks? I guess VDOT would have to work with, we'd have to work with VDOT, but it would seem like all of those things that would try to, you know, our comprehensive plan says walkability and all this stuff. So if we felt like we had a place that our citizens really want us to do that, and our traffic study's not really showing that, but we want it to become a more enhanced pedestrian or cycling area, then could we do things like try to put in crosswalks or things like that too?
Potentially. We have a lot more flexibility on our roads than we do VDOT's roads.
And I think for especially pedestrian safety, that South Church Street area, I mean, we don't know when the when that bike path is going to go in, but I think we should do more to help the pedestrians. I mean, you know, people walk on the side of the road all the time, and especially at night, that's a scary place to be walking. So I would rather see, I mean, at least on West Main, there's at least sidewalks there on both sides of the road, but Church Street, there's nothing. And even, maybe even better, street lights. I mean, you know, other things like that.
Good point.
Michael, before we leave that one, just one, the common sense question. Why would we not have any problem with reduction of speed anywhere?
Some of it is capacity of the roads, and lowering the speed limit can theoretically lower the capacity, you know, the volume that would handle it.
I mean, it just seems like,
Beyond that,
yeah,
just slowing, you know, the movement of people.
right. And the second is our, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir. Thank you for not making me be a potted plant, so I'm happy, my ears are perked up.
Yes, sorry, I'm starting to slow down, flipping the page or something. Can we appeal this requirement?
I'm sure we could, you know, make an appeal to the Commonwealth
I mean,
Transportation
the
Board.
things that Mary Ellen and Darren said,
Right.
you know, is extenuating circumstances, you know, these things are particular to Smithfield.
Yeah, I'm
About
sure we
letting
would have to
Smithfield
go
make the
through.
decision on, you know, and how we handle them. You know, I was telling Mary Ellen yesterday, the three things I hear constantly over and over, you know, anywhere, grocery store, golf course, over. Traffic and the speed, parking downtown, and again, I forget the third one. But those two, you know, these are things that our citizens are really concerned about, so.
Well, it would seem like, especially if we looked at it presented it from a larger perspective, right? So park-to-park trail, joining, right, an existing trail, reducing the speed limit, also expanding another park, right? So now new trails, new parks. So it would seem like opposite maybe of, you know, we got that new road, right? And they changed, switch the stop sign or whatever. You know, if we reduce the speed limit before people are walking on the street, we may enhance safety as well.
Yeah, I will say too that, you know, the community action plan that we're doing as part of the grant for the bike trail, that work is going to kick off sometime mid-August, and it will look at the town in totality for pedestrian mobility, all of that, you know, to increase safety. So some of these things may come out of that.
So is it better if we wait till that's done before we do this, or do we
I
need?
think moving this piece and doing, especially if we do West Main, I mean, none of the conditions out there are going to change between now and then. So
I mean,
I think we're safe to go
I mean,
forward.
obviously I want safety, but, you know, cost is a consideration too. I mean, these are expensive studies. And for, you know, one very small area, I think we just need to make sure that we're spending our money wisely as well.
Well, maybe then we want to revisit, and perhaps the police department or maybe there's some data that the county has that might inform our decision better. Crash and pedestrian accident data or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's all going into this community action plan. We've already got all of that, but for like this speed study piece, I think this piece that you've identified is probably a good first place. That's not it. The next item is just kind of more of an update. We've been asked to look at some employee benefits, incentives, things of that nature. I started pulling policies from other places and kind of stopped for a minute, and I've asked each department to volunteer one employee that's below the department head level. They will meet starting next week, and they're going to be tasked with coming up with a list of potential ideas, whether they're, you know, work hours, whether there's something else that would increase morale, efficiency, you know, operational excellence, all of those things, and put those together. That way we're going to hear from all pieces of the organization. We'll then take those to a department level, head level, and work through them, and then bring council some options on what seems to be effective. And maybe we'll hear something from the frontline folks that we wouldn't have thought about otherwise. But they'll start meeting next week to do that work.
Okay, any other questions?
I just have one quick question. our August meeting is not going to be affected by the primaries?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And just, I think you may have seen it in the email, the last we heard, Grace Street, they're supposed to start on the 3rd. If we get something different from VDOT, we'll pass that along, but that's the most recent.
yet. I thought we were gonna be after Reynolds.
I think they already did.
Oh, they flipped them. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, that's the schedule that they've sent us, is on the 3rd of August, but if we get something different, we'll pass that along to everybody.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.